All right, so if you're prepping for the UPSC exams and, really trying to get a grip on these big, crucial issues, there's this thinker whose ideas on fairness, equality, justice, they really haven't aged a bit. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
Yeah, spot on.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive deep into today, right?
Yep.
His views on social justice, equality, freedom, all super relevant. And it's been a hot topic, especially in those UPSC current affairs you're following every day.
For sure. And it's really interesting how the Hindu keeps bringing up Ambedkar's ideas.
Right.
His analysis of these deep-rooted inequalities, especially around caste and gender, those are still major frameworks for understanding India today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So what we're going to try and do in this deep dive is, pull out those golden nuggets of his thought stuff on the caste system, social justice, constitutionalism, all that, and see how they still matter, especially for you UPSC folks.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Ambedkar's philosophy. It wasn't just some ivory tower stuff, was it? He was really about making change happen.
You got it. Huge influence from John Dewey, that American philosopher.
Okay.
Pragmatism,
Wow.
that's the key word. Ambedkar wanted to tackle real-world injustices, the caste system, all that discrimination, the economic gaps. He was about solutions, not just theories.
So less talking, more action.
Exactly. He was all about the how. Like, what concrete steps can we take to actually dismantle this caste system, now? How do we improve the lives of the marginalized, today?
And, when we talk about those injustices, the caste system was obviously a big one for him. He wasn't just mildly disagreeing with it, was he?
Oh, no, not at all. He saw it as totally oppressive, morally wrong, totally bankrupt, and he was really clear about how dehumanizing it was, the impact it had on people. And this is important for UPSC folks to remember. He didn't just see Dalits as, individuals facing hardship. This was a whole community systematically denied basic rights and dignity.
Yeah. And his work, The Annihilation of Caste, back in 1936, it's still powerful stuff today. What's the one-liner we should take away from that?
Here's the key for your UPSC studies. Ambedkar said caste isn't just about different jobs, division of labor. It's a division of laborers. It's about locking whole communities into a system of being lower, having less. It's not just you do this job, I do that job. It's about who's on top, who's at the bottom, and how that gets passed down.
That's a big difference.
Right. And that's what keeps inequality going.
And then, of course, there's his move towards Buddhism, but, with his own spin on it, Navayana Buddhism.
Right. He recognized that traditional Buddhism, it had its limitations. He couldn't fully deal with India's specific social problems.
Yeah.
So he reinterpreted it Navayana, meaning new vehicle. The focus shifted big time to social equality, ethical behavior, like in this life, less about the rituals and all that. His book, The Buddha and His Dhamma, spells it all out.
So it wasn't just a minor tweak, right? He actually rejected some core Buddhist stuff.
Yeah, and this is crucial for your UPSC knowledge. Navayana Buddhism, straight up, rejected some core doctrines. The Four Noble Truths, for example, the ones about suffering and how to end it, the idea of karma, rebirth, cause and effect across lifetimes, nope. Even traditional nirvana, monastic life, all pushed aside. Ambedkar was all about immediate social justice, equality right here, right now. Those old concepts, he felt, they didn't cut it for the urgency of dismantling inequality in the present. And those mass conversions, starting with Dhammachakra Pravartan Day on October 14th, that was a powerful symbol of this new direction.
Wow. Okay, so he critiques the existing system, and then he's the one shaping India's legal foundation, the Constitution.
Exactly. Chief architect, right. He put his beliefs right into it. Liberty, equality, fraternity. India's foundation had to be built on these. And he straight up said he was inspired by the French Revolution. He saw how powerful those ideals could be, how they could transform a nation.
And he had some really insightful things to say about how those three principles, liberty, equality, fraternity, all work together. That's got to be important for anyone studying governance for the UPSC, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's this one statement of his: liberty without equality leads to domination by a few, and equality without liberty leads to oppression.
Yeah.
Super insightful. So the takeaway for you is that he saw liberty and equality as two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. If you do, you get either tyranny or just total control. They have to exist together for real fraternity to happen.
And this is where his idea of constitutional morality comes in. What's the key for our UPSC folks to understand this?
It's like this constitutional morality means going deeper than just the written law. You got to respect the spirit of the Constitution, its core values, fairness, human dignity, all that. It's about upholding those values even when the actual law might seem to allow something else. And that's why he was such a strong advocate for affirmative action. It's about uplifting those who've been historically oppressed, making sure everyone has a real shot at equality.
And fraternity, he wasn't just using that word lightly, was he?
No way. He saw fraternity, that feeling of brotherhood. Shared identity is the thing missing in Indian society. The caste system, it had created all these divisions.
Right.
And he believed that without this basic sense of belonging and respect for each other, liberty and equality alone weren't enough. You couldn't build a truly united and just nation without it.
Okay, so moving beyond the social and legal side of things, his political and economic ideas, those also have some big lessons for India today, which of course means for your UPSC prep too, right?
Yeah, super relevant. And honestly, pretty ahead of their time. Ambedkar saw democracy as way more than just voting every few years. It was a way of life, you know? It had to touch every part of society, and it had to be built on those core principles: liberty, equality, fraternity.
And when it came to the economy, he didn't really fit neatly into either capitalism or socialism, did he?
No, he was pragmatic there too, you know, like with everything else.
Right.
He wasn't for unfettered capitalism. He thought that would just make existing inequalities worse.
Okay.
But he also wasn't into extreme socialism, which he was worried could, you know, stifle individual freedom. So what he wanted was a mixed economy where the government played a key role, guiding development so that everyone benefited, especially marginalized communities. Land reform, labor rights, meaning fair wages, safe working conditions, and overall economic planning, all designed to empower those who had been disadvantaged historically.
And we can't forget his strong support for gender justice. He really got how caste and patriarchy were all tied together.
Absolutely. Huge champion for gender equality. He knew that women, especially Dalit women, faced a double whammy of discrimination, their caste and their gender. To him, the fight against patriarchy was completely linked to the broader fight for social justice. And, you know, he played a central role in drafting the Hindu Code Bill, which was all about reforming those discriminatory personal laws around marriage, inheritance, divorce, a major statement about his commitment to women's rights. He believed that educating women, empowering them, that was absolutely key to a truly equal society.
Okay, so now a super important area to understand for the UPSC, the whole Ambedkar-Gandhi relationship. Both were, giants of the independence movement, but they had some pretty fundamental disagreements, especially when it came to caste.
Yeah, that's crucial for your studies. Both were all about social justice, building a nation, but they had different approaches, especially with the caste system. Ambedkar, he was very critical of Gandhism. He thought its reforms of the caste system just weren't enough. He wanted the whole thing abolished, legally gone. Whereas Gandhi, while he hated untouchability and even came up with the term Harijan, he still saw some potential in the traditional Varna system, those four categories, just a reformed, more just version of it.
Right, so where Gandhi saw a chance to make the existing system better, Ambedkar thought the whole thing was rotten at its core and needed to be thrown out.
Exactly. And that difference in how they understood caste, well, that affected their solutions for uplifting Dalits.
Makes sense.
Gandhi, he appealed to the upper caste's conscience, their morality, hoping for gradual change, integration, all led by the heart. Ambedkar, on the other hand, he said Dalits needed to empower themselves, education, organization, getting their political rights. That's why he initially wanted separate electorates, and then later he agreed to reserve seats as part of the Pune Pact, which dealt with representation of the depressed classes in legislatures. And their economic views were different too. Gandhi, he liked a more decentralized, village-based economy, while Ambedkar championed industrialization, modernization. He thought that was essential for everyone to progress economically. And then there's the big one. Gandhi stayed a reformer within Hinduism, but Ambedkar ended up rejecting the whole religion and converting to Buddhism. He saw it as a path to equality, dignity outside of that oppressive caste structure.
So with all that in mind, why are Ambedkar's ideas still so relevant now in the 21st century? Especially for these UPSC folks, you got to analyze what's going on today.
Well, this is where it gets super real for your UPSC journey. Think about social justice, those reservation policies we have today for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes that come straight from Ambedkar's vision. He wanted social upliftment, representation, and the struggles we see now against caste-based violence, discrimination, death, those are fueled by his commitment to justice. His ideas give them strength.
And with India's democracy, all the challenges it's facing right now.
Yeah, think about it. Majoritarianism, where the majority's will is everything and minorities can get sidelined. Concerns about attacks on minorities, the whole debate about freedoms being eroded. All of that highlights how important Ambedkar's idea of constitutional morality still is. He said the Constitution's values, its principles, liberty, equality, fraternity, they got to be our guide, always. It's a crucial reminder to uphold the law, protect everyone's rights.
And his slogan, educate, agitate, organize, that's still so powerful, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Educate knowledge is power, right? It helps you break free from oppression. Agitate, you got to challenge injustice, demand your rights, and organize collective action. That's how you make real change happen. You can see that spirit in all those government policies that promote education for marginalized communities, different skill development programs, all those grassroots movements that are fighting for empowerment.
And all these conversations about women's rights, gender equality.
Ambedkar's work there, it's still the foundation.
Yeah.
He understood how caste and patriarchy are linked, and all his efforts to reform those discriminatory personal laws that's still shaping today's debates. Equal pay, women's rights, the push for real personal law reform that guarantees justice for everyone, regardless of gender, it all goes back to him.
And even in the economic sphere, his ideas are relevant to the problems India is facing today, right?
100%. He pushed for strategic government involvement in industrialization, proper land reforms, strong protections for workers' rights, and all that is still relevant. Look at the unemployment, the huge gaps between rich and poor, the exploitation of labor. Ambedkar's vision economic justice as a core part of a truly equal society that resonates today.
So to wrap it all up, it seems like Ambedkar's philosophy gives us a complete way to understand and actually deal with these complicated problems, a must-have lens for anyone prepping for the UPSC, right?
Exactly. Social, legal, political, economic, gender issues, he covered it all.
Mhm.
And he didn't see them as separate things. He understood they're all connected, these different forms of inequality and oppression. Studying him, it's not just history. It's a guide for creating more inclusive, just India. Super valuable for your UPSC prep.
Yeah, for everyone getting ready for those exams, understanding Dr. Ambedkar's philosophy, it's not just an academic box to tick. It's essential for really analyzing what's happening today, for forming smart opinions on governance, social justice, constitutionalism, all that core UPSC stuff.
And this leads to a big question for you to think about as you study. Given that we still have all these challenges with inequality, injustice, even with our Constitution in place, how can we apply Ambedkar's ideas best? He said we need legal reform and social transformation. How do we make that happen in India today? It's something to really dig into.
Something to chew on, for sure. So, folks, if this deep dive into Dr. Ambedkar's philosophy has been helpful for your UPSC journey, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives on important topics, and feel free to drop a comment if you have any questions or if there are specific areas you'd like us to cover in the future. Just a reminder, the main source for our discussion today was The Hindu.